Hello, I'm Belkys Perez. Thanks for tuning in to Coral Gables Now. On today's show, seniors are common targets of con artists. Learn how to protect yourself and your money. A new social group aims at promoting the Russian language and culture in Coral Gables, and you may be surprised at how popular it is. Plus, looking to change careers, a little-known jewelry store in the heart of Coral Gables is opening doors for its students. And it's time for dessert. A local cupcake store is showcased on national television. Those stories and much more. Coral Gables Now starts right now. Welcome to Coral Gables Now. I'm Belkys Perez. Seniors are common targets of con artists who are only out for one thing: to take their money. Garry Opper of Levy Opper LLC is here to explain to us some of the common types of identity and senior crimes that are happening right now, and to give us some information on how seniors can protect themselves. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So there's some scams that you've outlined for us. There's about 4 popular ones. It's bank and credit cards, internet scams, phone and door-to-door scams, and it really covers the gamut there. Okay, let's start by bank and credit card scams. What are some of the most common types of fraudulent banking scams?
2 popular banking scams are the credit card scam and uninsured depositors. In the credit card scams, which is interesting, in all of 2009, there were only $46 million of bank robberies. In credit card, in check fraud and credit card scams, there was over $800 million stolen. Yet the FBI spends a lot more time dealing with bank robberies than they do with credit card and check fraud. In credit card fraud, basically, some criminal, some crook is out to take personal information and use that information to buy things using the credit card. Another popular one is the uninsured depositor. And the uninsured deposits is that since interest rates are low, people are obviously attracted to higher interest rates. And some crook will call and try to entice a senior citizen or anyone that with a higher interest rate that the money is insured and whatever. And obviously there is no investment at all. And clearly if there's no investment, there's no FDIC insurance. So basically the money is
And that would be over the phone?
Well, they do it over the phone. They can do it by mail. They can do it in person. I mean, as creative as you and I could think of, someone who's a crook is even more creative.
That's true. So how about credit card skimming scams? You touched on that. You know, when you think of seniors, you don't think of them as using their credit cards as much. Is that the case?
Well, they don't use it. The statistic says that they don't use it as often, but they still use it a lot. And one of the problems is obviously people get a hold of the personal information and they start spending. And one of the things, the way to protect you against that is you should have all your credit card information stored in a central location. So if you do lose a credit card stolen, or you see that there's illegal activity on it, that you can quickly call the insurance, quickly call the credit card company. Additionally, you should keep your receipts. So, and when the bill comes, you should promptly open the bill, compare the receipts to the bill itself to make sure that they match up. And if there is any differences, then you should quickly call the credit card company and notify them of any questionable activities.
Do you find a problem? Do you find that there's a lot of people that really don't go through that measure where they keep their receipts and their statements and they compare? Maybe that's where the problem is as well.
Yes, I compare, and even though I'm a big comparer, I know that both of my sons do not compare, which obviously I've taught them to compare, but they just don't keep their receipts. So please keep your receipts.
So phone scams. Often people get calls that they've won something. How should they handle this?
Well, I always tell people you're always allowed to hang up, and you're always allowed to say no. But if somebody calls and says, "Congratulations, you've won something," then you can always. They're not going to ask you for personal information. They're not going to ask you for credit card information. And then again, you're allowed to call them back. So what you should do is hang up, look in the phone book as to what organization it is, and call them back based on the phone number in the phone book and not necessarily the phone number that they've given you. And that will prevent a lot of seniors and anyone from being taken by one of these scammers.
And seniors and even I have gotten some phone calls saying that they belong to a charity and they're looking for your donation. How do you handle a situation like that when you really don't know?
Well, again, with charities, you're allowed to hang up. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed not to answer the phone. If they do call, all charities are registered. So if someone calls up and purports that they're from a charity, you can check to see if the charity is a real charity. Also, when they call up, a real charity is not going to pressure you. They're not going to make you do something right that very minute. So you can call them back and you're allowed to think about it. They're also, again, they're not going to ask you for personal information. And if they do, obviously if you're paying by credit card, you may again want to hang up, look it up in the telephone, look it up on the internet, and then call them back if you're interested in making a donation.
How about a situation where you've got someone calling you wanting a senior to place their assets in living trusts? I guess that would happen a lot to seniors. How would they be able to handle a situation like that?
Well, again, that could happen to anybody, but with seniors, obviously they've accumulated some wealth. They tend to have more wealth. They tend to be more kind, so they might be an easy target. Whenever you're dealing with money, especially with a living trust or something like that, you should deal locally. You should deal through an attorney or a financial planner who probably you got from a recommendation as opposed to doing it over the phone.
There's also especially here, we've seen a lot of lately. We've seen recent scams where people go knock at seniors' houses. They say they're there for utility purposes, or they're there to exterminate anything at all. Seniors let them in, and then one person keeps them busy while another person enters in another location or whatever and steals valuables, whether it's cash or jewelry or whatever. I think it really comes back to the aspect of knowing when to say no, or knowing when to be more cautious, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're always allowed to say no. You're always allowed to not let people come into your house. Your house is your castle. What you can do is check their credentials, when they're at the door. You also can shut the door, call up if they're with the utility company or with the city or whatever. You can check and see, are they really legitimately should be in your house. Obviously, if you didn't initiate the call, you should be careful. I mean, if someone comes and they want to exterminate and you didn't initiate the call, then you probably shouldn't let them in. And again, when you call and you find out did somebody initiate it, and most of the time the city doesn't have a need to come into your house. The utility, unless you call them, doesn't have a need to come into your house. So you should be very careful about that. If for some reason they do come into your house, you always should have your valuables secured somewhere where they're not out in the open. And then you should also have insurance to make sure that in the event that something were to happen, that you can call your insurance company and obviously have them replaced or have the insurance company pay for the loss.
Is there a similar situation then with door-to-door salesmen? You don't see that often, but I'm sure that years back that was popular to see door-to-door salesmen, so it's common for seniors.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, door-to-door was a lot more prevalent when I was young, not necessarily when you were young, but it has become more active. There are people who are going door-to-door who are testing, because basically if you knock on enough doors, someone's going to fall for their scheme. They're going to either let them in, and then in that case they might be able to steal something, or worse. But again, you want to be very careful. You don't have to let people in. You don't have to even acknowledge that somebody's knocking at your door if you haven't invited somebody to come to your house.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Garry. I appreciate it as always. It's a pleasure to have you here, and basically the lesson here is that you should not let anyone to your house, and if you feel uncomfortable in any way at all, that you should definitely just hang up and think twice about what you're doing and not be so nice.
Not be so nice. And also, when when you helped your children when they were young, now it's your children's time to help you when you're older.
True.
In these type of situations.
True. Thank you, Garry. And moving on, the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce recently honored Commissioner Jim Barker with the prestigious George E. Merrick Award. Rodolfo Roman has that story.
Former Coral Gables Commissioner James T. Barker is getting a lot of love for his efforts in helping the youth succeed.
I get big hugs and I get thank you notes, and I have them call me and thank me for it.
And the lovely greeting is much deserved. For over 20 years, Barker has spearheaded the Donald Hopkins Bill Cooper Scholarship Award. Students are awarded monies for their college career. The initiative started as a way to open educational doors to African Americans living in Coral Gables. Former City Attorney Bob Zahner and Barker got the program started.
And I was talking with Bob Zahner, the former city attorney, who has since left us, and he suggested, he said, Jim said, we ought to think about doing something for Black Gables. And he says, there are a lot of good people down there, and it's sort of a forgotten community.
Resident Leona and Bill Cooper also assisted Barker when he served on the commission. The program has been rewarding.
But by and large, we've had most of them finish and get on with their lives and come back and make it a better place here in this community.
Barker has lived in the area for 40 years. He was born in Georgia. After serving in the United States military, he attended a college in Jacksonville, but later moved to the city to work for Southern Bell.
I have always loved this community and worked very hard in the community.
Living in the city, he served on the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce and the Commission for several years. Barker's hard work in the community has paid off as he was bestowed the George Merrick Award of Excellence this year.
Tears came in my eyes. I was thrilled, and it's a great honor. It's a great honor to be recognized like that.
And although Barker has approached 80, the age number is not stopping him from bringing more kindness to the city he dearly loves.
I'm 80 years old and still kicking. And I feel like my motto is the longer you live, you just make more plans.
For Coral Gables Now, Rodolfo Romy.
And Coral Gables Now is just getting started. Still to come, looking for something to keep you busy? Well, why not try a hobby that could easily become a business? Coral Gables is known for its cultural diversity, but did you ever think there would be a big Russian presence in the city? We'll tell you about a group that promotes all things Russian. And the Coral Gables Museum hopes to be a LEED certified building. We'll have more on how it plans on doing it. Coral Gables Now will be right back.